for Drake May or Jalen Hurts?
I think it's a bigger deal for Drake.
Me too.
Like, we've seen what Mahomes as a young quarterback had Tyreek Hill and obviously Travis Kelce. We saw what Stephon Diggs did for Josh Allen. Heck, remember what DeAndre Hopkins did for Kyler Murray, in Arizona. So, and I know he had Diggs last year, but Diggs isn't, in his prime.
He thought
really
Diggs was better than A.J. Brown last year, to be fair.
Their numbers.
His production was.
But you would admit Brown's a better receiver at this point.
Yes, A.J. Brown is a better.
But their numbers last season
Diggs was good for him. But Brown is just another level. He can obviously beat his man anytime. And then you still got Booty and they got a nice little receiver.
Seems like Dobbs, oddly Booty might be on the way out now. But that was reported a few hours ago. But
I love this for Drake.
Yeah, I think it's a bigger deal for Drake May because of the fact that he did have Diggs last year, and now you get a younger version, you get a arguably more dynamic version with upside, and that's going to be really important to him. But this could also be great for Jalen Hurts. Sometimes there is addition by subtraction, and whatever the issues were, whether it was a chemistry issue, whether it was a personality, whatever the issue was, there was a significant issue between him and Jalen Hurts, and it'll give him a fresh start, and it'll give Jalen Hurts a different group to work with. So it could actually end up, and it seems strange to say that when you lose a quality player, but it could end up helping Jalen.
I think it's a huge deal for Drake, a huge deal for the Patriots, and a huge deal for our return to the Super Bowl. Question for you. Is Drake and A.J. Brown a top 5 combination in the league? I'll give you just on yards. There's a lot of ways to split the atom here. Just yards. Darnold and JSN were 1. Stafford and Puka were 2. Dak and George Pickens were 3. Burrow and Chase were 4. Goff and Amon-Ra St. Brown.
So that's just the top 5 in receiving yards.
That's just top 5 receiving yards with all I just added their quarterbacks. Ravens and Zay Flowers were 7th. So can Drake May and A.J. Brown, you could say if there's another top 5 in there.
Did you say Burrow and Chase?
Yeah, Burrow and Chase, they were 4th. I just put yards, I think those are the top combos. CeeDee Lamb maybe, but he's just below.
So they're doing it because they expect it to be, for sure.
I think they would be top. I think that is now a top 5 combination.
Well, I don't know that I view what you're saying combination. But those are just the receiving yards.
They're really just receiving
Will A.J. Brown
be my top 5?
Will A.J. Brown be top 5 in the NFL in receiving yards this year? He expects to be, and the Patriots expect him to be if he's there.
Top 5.
I think that is true. But I think it's a bigger deal for Jalen because nobody wants. I'm going to take Kevin Wilde's word for it on this. Drake May and Stephon Diggs last year, you were adamant, even though you didn't do that little fancy math there.
They were 16th in yards.
Correct, but you thought they were a top 5 duo.
I didn't think they were a top 5 duo.
I think you said
KW.
Actually, no.
KW.
When the passer rating
KW, you kept showing us the passer rating.
The usage.
You kept showing the passer rating, and then we got in a whole argument about you saying how Diggs is definitively. Diggs was definitively one of the 10 best receivers in the league.
I agree with that.
Right. And so he's out and AJ's in. By the closest eye of anyone that watched the Patriots, that's a wash.
All right. Let's dive into this. Everyone else is discussing it heavily in relation to the Eagles, and I genuinely want to examine it through the Patriots' perspective. I have an A.J. Brown Eagles video scheduled to go live tomorrow. I just posted an incredibly detailed, very long video focused on the Eagles, and I don't want to overload people with Eagles content all in one day. So I'll be spacing that out. However, I don't necessarily believe it's a straight trade-off when comparing Diggs and A.J. I fully grasp the point Nick is attempting to make here. I really do. I understand it. Now, listen. I do believe there's a legitimate argument that A.J. Brown might be experiencing a slight decline. He wasn't consistently winning at the line of scrimmage, as Bruce pointed out. Saying that is just inaccurate. But even so, I still think A.J. Brown has plenty of ability left. I believe A.J. Brown can still achieve a great deal of success. What's fascinating is that Drake May played with a lot of freedom last season. There was no pressure to force the ball to any specific receiver. I was an early supporter of Drake May, praising him. I even thought he deserved MVP consideration. I am a huge admirer of Drake May. I've already labeled him as elite, and people got upset with me. They asked, how dare I call him elite? I call him that because I genuinely believe he is elite. I think he's a unique talent. Now, having to manage the presence of A.J. Brown is an additional responsibility that Drake May will need to handle and navigate in a way he simply hasn't had to before. You can tell that Drake May is a very nice, kind individual. If you look at the spectrum ranging from extremely intense and fiery to more softly spoken, he definitely leans toward the latter. He's more in the mode of I'm here to have fun, I'm smiling, I'm trying to compete. He is not the type of person to say, be quiet and listen to me. This is my huddle. It's just a different style. And it's something he will need to grow into. Drake will have to develop that aspect of his leadership. When you're dealing with strong personalities and players who want the ball, and this is why credit goes to Diggs, he was a great asset for that team, I don't think A.J. Brown will be a problem. But Drake May will perform at his highest level when he's playing freely. When he's distributing the ball as he chooses, using his legs as he wants, when he can truly just be unrestricted. People say, look at what Tyreek Hill did for Patrick Mahomes, or look at DeAndre Hopkins with Kyler Murray and all those other examples. But here's the thing, Drake May already had a successful season without an A.J. Brown, without a top 5 receiver. Without someone who is clearly elite, special, and simply dominant. So, the developmental benefits you could gain from having a great receiver, in terms of the routes you can run, the types of throws you can make, the conversations that receiver will have with the quarterback to help him understand what NFL receivers look for, all of that kind of stuff, it's not absolutely necessary. Not to mention, the primary person you'll be learning and developing from isn't A.J. Brown or Diggs. It's your offensive coordinator. You know, it's Tom Brady's former coach. The guy who has been around forever. The guy with a wealth of experience who knows exactly what you're dealing with. He's not working with some younger coordinator, a new play caller, or someone just trying to make it in the NFL. That's what those other quarterbacks had, outside of obviously Andy Reid and Mahomes. So, the relationship that ultimately matters most for Drake May is with Josh McDaniels. That, to me, is what matters more than anything else. More than anything else, repeated. I care far more about those discussions and the conversations that A.J. Brown will have with Drake May. And again, I believe this will ultimately be a positive overall. I understand where Nick is coming from when he suggests it might end up being a wash. If you move on from Diggs and bring in A.J. Brown, you might get similar production. And I think it will be much closer than people realize. But it's very difficult to predict what year 2 will look like for Drake May, given he has excellent coaching and a legitimate roster around him, because I don't put much weight on a rookie year. What does year 2 look like for Drake May? Because I truly believe he will continue to improve steadily. But it's interesting. Because you even see the win total projection for the Patriots at 9.5. They made it to the Super Bowl, they have a tougher schedule, right? That whole conversation has been placed squarely on the Patriots' shoulders. And it's like, when we talk about a major upgrade, a net positive, or a wash, through which lens are we viewing that? Will the Patriots be better? Will Drake May be better? Will A.J. Brown have more receiving yards or more touchdowns? What exactly are we trying to measure? Because I do agree that if you swapped Diggs for A.J. Brown in the Super Bowl, it could be the difference between winning and losing the Super Bowl. Right? So, again, that's why it's like, if you didn't have Josh McDaniels, if you didn't have a Diggs there already, if you didn't have some of that existing experience, and you still had the success that Drake May had, then I could say, okay, we're definitely adding a huge piece in A.J. Brown. The things they'll be able to do, the routes they'll run. A.J. Brown will genuinely help Drake see many things differently, from the inside mind of an NFL receiver, and so on. But that's not necessarily guaranteed. So if we're strictly talking about pure production, in order for this to be a true, real, 100% major step forward, a genuinely big net positive, it depends far more on Drake May and Josh McDaniels than it does on A.J. Brown. That's how I see it. This isn't like Tua Tagovailoa getting Tyreek Hill, where you think, Okay, they went from having nothing to having everything. I don't see that being the case here. However, I do anticipate probably a lot more production in the red zone. So I could envision something almost like the Davante Adams situation. They're different players, obviously, but I wouldn't be surprised to see a Davante Adams / Sean McVay type of dynamic, but with A.J. Brown and Josh McDaniels, right? So, but then the question is, are you adding new touchdowns, or are you simply replacing touchdowns you were already scoring? So, it's a significant development for Drake May and the New England Patriots, and I think it's very exciting and a great thing. But the way this is being discussed right now, I worry that the perception is that Drake May is very raw, didn't have much to work with, when in reality he's already had a lot of success. His production was already unbelievable. He was already very successful. I just don't think it's necessarily 100% pure addition. Now, if you still had Diggs and you also added A.J. Brown, then it would be different. Then you'd be cooking. Then you'd have a tremendous amount at your disposal. But as it stands, it's more like, alright, can you get the offensive line functioning well? Can Drake May take fewer sacks? Can you take better care of the football? No more fumbles from strip sacks. Can you establish a more consistent running game for the entire season? And does your defense continue to play at a high level? You address all those things, and you're golden. So it's interesting to figure out how much A.J. Brown can genuinely add versus how much he simply replaces, and not just replacing Diggs, mind you, because that's the easy comparison for a wash. But it's about what other production comes into play. Because again, Drake May was an excellent distributor of the ball. Does more of that distribution simply get funneled toward A.J. Brown? If it does, then things remain roughly equal. But having an A.J. Brown definitely creates a synergistic effect where his very presence will open things up more. So it will really be fascinating to watch. I mean, just to further illustrate my point, Drake May had essentially 4,400 yards and 31 touchdowns. Does he need to throw 4? Again, Matthew Stafford threw for 4,700 yards with Puka Nacua, that's only a few hundred more yards. Does adding A.J. Brown now automatically mean, okay, boom, that's an extra 300 yards and an extra 15 touchdowns? That would be pretty wild. That would be quite wild, honestly. But those are just my thoughts. I would absolutely love to hear yours. What do you all think about Drake May and the New England Patriots? It seems all but official that they are finally locking this into place and getting A.J. Brown. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get into some discussions, let's get into some debates, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. Please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here, and I would absolutely love to see you be a part of it. I want to build something we all feel genuinely connected to, something we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing that. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. It really does help with visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.